Hey guys, so this video is to show you a tutorial on how to make a vehicle within Maya. First we're going to start with building out the chassis for a vehicle, and for this particular assignment we're going to be making a vehicle with 4 wheels. We'll start with the chassis, and then we will work on the wheels, and then we will work on the details. Now this is just going to be a low poly construction of a vehicle, but it should serve very well as a base for any type of vehicle you want to make in the future. Typically when I'm making vehicles in Maya, this is kind of the starting process. And it's pretty low poly, but it'll get you in the right direction. And we'll try to stylize it a little bit too, so it looks a little bit cooler. So anyways, to begin, anytime I'm creating a vehicle, I always start with basic geometry, just like everything else, kind of box modeling. But I want to pay particular attention to the modeling toolkit here on the side, this guy. And with that being said, you want to make sure that when we're modeling, that our model is pointing forward, and you can see by the z-axis where that is pointing. So the front of our car is going to be over here, back of our car will be here, and then we're going to model symmetrically. So we want to make sure that the symmetry option is on object X. So we'll be using the symmetry of X to kind of shape our chassis of our car. So to start, we're just going to build the base frame. So I'm going to start with a cube, and I'm just going to load my cube in here. Oh, my settings are kind of messed up on the cube, but that's no big deal. I'll just resize that really quickly. And if I'm resizing stuff, again, I just use the basic scale tools to do that. So I've got a basic cube here. With my cube selected, if I right click on it and go to face mode, this will allow me to choose the different faces of my model, just like we've done on the other assignments. If I hold the shift key outside my model, I can pull out extrusions from my model. So just by selecting a face and holding shift and dragging, you can pull out that geometry from your model. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out some sections that I can then use for this model to kind of edit the geometry. I'll do 2 sections in the front and 2 sections in the back, and these will kind of be my wheel wells. So we'll make one right here. I'll make the front of my car right there, and then I'm going to go to the back and I'll pull out one right here, about the same size as this piece right here, and then a back piece right there. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is for my entire model, I'm going to go to object mode, and I'm just going to stretch it outwards a little bit like so. Okay. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my vertex mode right here, and I might go to wireframe by hitting 4 just to see through my model so I can see the different sections I have. And I'm just going to grab this back half of my model, and I'm just going to pull it back a little bit to give that kind of center section to the model. So our wheels will be right here in these little sections, and we'll have our center area where our driver can sit. All right. Now it's just a matter of, once we get kind of this base shape, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections to the model here. Back to object mode, kind of move it into place. Now I can start kind of forming this model into the shape of the actual car that I'm going to build. And I can do that with extrusions. If I go back into my shaded mode here, just like I did when I pulled the extrusions out in the front and the back, I can come in here and pull the extrusions out on the side. So I can come here and say, you know what, let's go ahead and extrude these side pieces out right here, and these front pieces out right here, just like so. They don't have to match up perfectly. It's probably even better if they don't. Then in the back, I'm going to pull these sides out right here. And again, I'm just holding the shift key to pull that out. You could also use the extrude function by clicking this button right here. We're going to mesh tools, and was it mesh tools? Edit mesh, extrude. Okay, so either way. But I kind of want a shape that's like this. And you can see now we kind of have like these wheel wells starting to form, right? From here, I can then click on the entire top of my mesh here. You'll see that I'm working in symmetry, lets me work on both sides at the same time, so it's pretty nice. So I just shift click this top panels right here, and I can move that now up or down, depending on what I need. I'm going to bring it down a little bit. I'm just going to hold shift, and I'm going to extrude it up, just a couple of different extrusions. We'll do one, and we'll do one more, just kind of give it 2 levels. And the reason I like to do that is now I can start kind of forming this model into the actual car that I want. So I can maybe click the middle right here, and maybe we pull that up a little bit, right? Maybe we pull this back side up. Maybe we'll grab the top right there. We're gonna pull that up a little bit. Push the front down here. You see how it's starting to kind of, starting to actually turn into some type of a vehicle, right? And it gives us a little geometry to play with for the vehicle. So we've got obviously an area in the front right here that maybe we could turn into the grille of the vehicle. In the back right here, we have an area that we could turn into the back side of the vehicle. And then we could just do some little modifications to the top right here to kind of fill in these gaps. Okay, so we've got this area in right here because we want that wheel well right there, right? So to do that, typically what I'll do here is I'll just delete this section and this section. All right, so we'll make some little holes. I'm just deleting those spaces, just like that. And you know what? I'll go ahead and, yeah, that's fine for now. All right, we'll go ahead and delete that too. Go ahead and delete that. All right, so we get those little sections right there. And then on this side, we're going to delete that section, and that section, and delete those. Now, by using bridging, which is in our modeling toolkit here, we can bridge our open edges to actually fill in the gaps of this little area. This will kind of give us more of a complete kind of vehicle, right? So I'm going to do this by going into my edge mode. Go to edge. Once I'm in my edge mode right here. And I can do both sides at the same time, which is great. This is why you want to keep your symmetry on. But here I'm going to grab this edge and this edge and go to bridge. See how it just fills that in, right? So I filled in this edge to this edge. Now I'm going to go here on this next one. I'm going to click this one and this one. Now it's really important that you have the same number of edges. Like this were just quads on each side, so it easily is going to match up, right? So I'm going to come here, I'm going to click bridge again. So now you see I got that little section bridged in. All right, I'm going to go underneath. I click this one and this one. We're just going to bridge those together. And you know, sometimes if this grid gets in the way, you know, I'm using the grid. It's good to have the grid, especially when you're working on a car, because you can see it. You know, I can move my object up or down as needed, right? To kind of set it on the ground. That's great to have that grid there. But if that ever gets in the way and you just don't, you know, you're not feeling it, you can always go to view, or show, and you can turn the grid off if you need to. All right, sometimes it's nice when you're modeling just to turn that off, so if you're looking at things from underneath, you're not dealing with this grid that's in the way. So you can see we've got that front part filled in. Now I'm just going to go to the back and do the same thing. So I'm going to grab these edges, go to my edge tool here, we'll go edge, edge, and we'll go bridge. All right, we'll go edge, edge, we'll go bridge, and underneath. We'll go edge, edge. I'm just shift clicking those edges and clicking bridge. Right, so now I've filled in all of those pieces. So now I've got more of like a comprehensive kind of model. And now we just tweak it, right? We can just literally start adding a little more geometry to this to kind of form it into the shape of a vehicle that we're trying to do. So, you know, I could, you know, scale down into the middle here if I wanted to, you know, make the chassis something the character sits in, which actually, you know, I might do that just to kind of make it a little more interesting. Or I can modify, you know, the geometry. So maybe the back here, if I go to my things, maybe I pull this up a little bit. So maybe this kind of flares up a little bit. Maybe even this side kind of does that. Something like that, make it a little more interesting. Straighten those out a little bit. And then maybe even this right here, maybe this goes up. And maybe this, right? Just play around with that and make the shape yours, you know, depending on whatever you want to make. You know, it's totally up to you to kind of customize, and you can go till your heart's content. You could really go crazy with this if you wanted to, or just, you know, keep it subtle like I'm doing, right? I'm going to define these wheel wells a little bit more. And to do that, I'm just going to round them out. So I'm going to come up to my mesh tools, go to my insert edge loop. I'm going to put an edge loop right in the middle, right there. Right? That'll kind of allow me to kind of pull these central areas up a little bit. And easily right here, I can just come in, grab those verts, and just pull this section up a little bit. All right, we'll pull that up. And we'll pull these guys up a little bit just to kind of round that out a little bit more. See how I'm doing that? Just kind of shaping these areas. All right, bring that down just a shade, like so. All right, we'll come here, and we'll just pull that up a little bit. And I'm just styling it now. Now I'm trying to make it my own thing, right? I'll come to the back side and do exactly what I did in the front and the back. Oh, maybe I'll bring that up a little bit too. Matches. Right. And I'm working in symmetry, so it'll do the same thing on each side. We'll come to the back side here. We'll go edit mesh. I'm sorry, mesh tools, insert edge loop. I'll go right in the middle right here. Make that edge loop that goes all the way around. And then I'll start raising up these little areas just to kind of shape these particular sections as well. And we could add a little more flair to this by maybe like raising up some of the sections to kind of make those wheel wells a little more exciting, right? We could play around with that. Play around with the back of the car, bring it up in the back. Kind of customize it till your heart's content. You can bring it forward a little bit, and maybe you'll put some exhaust on this back side, and do some cool lights here. Right? There's a lot you can do just by kind of messing around with those particular features. Now, usually when I get to this point, I'm just going to do a little bit more modification. I might do some whole model modification right there. I'll just pull it down. Maybe I'll pull this center up a little bit more. Maybe even come in and maybe I'll just taper this middle part so it kind of comes together a little bit more like that. See how you just kind of refining the shape now, kind of getting it to something that looks a little more like a car, right? Definitely looking like a sports car or something like that. I'll come in here and go real crazy, and I can actually extrude. Oh, oops. Use my extrude tool here. Extrude. And come up with it, and maybe bring it in, something like that. Really make that fun. Now it's looking like a futuristic car, right? And again, this all just started from a cube, right? I took my initial cube and then just started messing around with it. Now, it might look kind of, if you notice my model, it looks a little bit funny, right? The rendering doesn't look 100% right. I'm going to go ahead and smooth that out. And to do that, I just click on my model, and we're going to change the rendering, or the way that these faces render in terms of their edges and their points, right? When you start modifying a cube, it tries to keep those flat faces of a cube throughout your mesh. But as you start pulling and extruding, those normals, or the way that the light refracts off your model, is going to get kind of messed up over time. So to fix that, I'm just going to make it smooth. I'm going to go click on my model. I'm going to go up to Mesh Display and then do Soften Edges. So it might look kind of weird how it like softens that out, but we'll fix that later, especially in Unity. But the more geometry that you add to the model, that's also going to help that as well. If I went to this whole bottom edge here, I click this whole bottom edge all the way around my model here, and all the way to the back side. I'll go over here, grab this like that, and then said Mesh Display Harden Edge. You can kind of like define which areas of your model are hard and which ones are soft, right? So just know that, especially if you're working on the car, you can soften some areas, you can harden some areas, and it's really going to help the overall presentation of your model as you go forward. So that's looking pretty good. So I'd say that's their base chassis for the model. I'd say that looks pretty great, and I'll run with that. You know what, maybe I'll just add a couple extra details on here. And I'll just come into like the edges here, and I don't know, maybe we'll just do some crazy looking bumper or something. All right, I'll come here, and I'll just use an extrusion. Kind of pull that out a little bit, maybe something like that. There we go, crazy little bumper. And then maybe on the back here, I'll do the same thing. Let's do something fun here. And we'll also pull out a little bumper. Say, okay, there's something. Right. Okay. So what we'll do next in the next lesson is we've got our nice little chassis to work from here. I will create some wheels next. I'll show you a really easy way to make wheels, and then we will get into just adding some final details to kind of dress this thing up and go from there. So this is the initial chassis creation. Hopefully that helped. We'll get into wheels, then we'll add some details, and this guy will be all done.